You want to do some Grandy's grades? This is, ladies and gentlemen, where we take a look back. The most recent 49er game, we go position group by position group, and Mark Grandi hands them out.
All right, let's get to it. 49ers fell to the Vikings. Week 2, 23-17 was the final score. Let's start with my first of 7 different groups. We'll go quarterback, skill positions, which is running back, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, the front 7, which is the down linemen and the linebackers, secondary, special teams, and coaching. We'll begin, as always, with the quarterback. This might be a big one. I don't know. I might get a lot of people disagreeing with me. I wasn't that harsh on Brock. Gave him a C+ for his performance on Sunday against the Vikings. What do you think?
A C+ is, I think that's in the range. I think that a straight C would have been maybe more appropriate. I think, and Mark and I talked about it, he did make some big-time throws. Yep. More red zone inefficiency, 2 big turnovers, so it certainly wasn't an A or a B. I don't want to quibble with C+ or C. C- feels a little too harsh, but I think C+ is in the range.
Yep, C+ is actually exactly where my mind went yesterday. Yours went C, mine went C+. I'll agree with it. I'll agree with it completely. Like you've got a couple of very, very damaging mistakes in there. You also have, as you said, you have some dot throws, some big plays. You have over 300 yards passing. You had your first touchdown pass of the year. Not all bad for Brock. C+ feels about right.
Yeah.
And I also think part of the reason why I wasn't a little more harsh was when you're under pressure as much as Brock was, and what you're talking about with lack of separation from your receivers that you're throwing to, so much of what hindered the offense. Maybe you blame it on Brock, but he wasn't really helped out by anyone around him either.
I agree. Like, again, to me, the trenches of the football, we'll get to those grades. The trenches of the football game were not in the Niners' favor for the most part.
Yeah. All right. Up next, skill position. So this is running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Same grade as quarterback. I gave him a C+.
What was the thinking?
Jordan Mason was the buoy that kept them up. I wasn't particularly impressed by Deebo Samuel, despite his numbers. There were some garbage time yards that he got in there towards the stretch, down the stretch. And again, what we're talking about with the quarterbacks, I didn't think some of this is Ayuk. I thought Kittle was good. There wasn't a lot of help that the skill position players provided Brock Purdy. They could have, maybe got open a little bit more and provided easy access. So a C+ buoyed by Jordan Mason.
What do you think?
I would lean toward B-.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I think that Kyle Juszczyk deserves a lot of credit. He had a couple of great catches, including the toe tapper on the sideline. And I don't want to gloss over Jordan Mason in his second start, going 20 for 100 yards. And he was really the only running threat. And early in the game, outside of that first drive where they didn't run it at all, he was the guy who was moving the chains. I thought that he was terrific again. George Kittle was a matchup problem. And, Ayuk did what he could do with the limited number of targets that he got.
I have a question. Jacob Cowing is a skill position player. However, his mistake happened within the framework of special teams. So does that count?
I guess it's up to each individual's interpretation. Okay. That, for me, would go under special teams.
Okay, because I also look at this the same argument you and I had last week about where's the demerit to move them down. Now, I don't think they were deserving of an A, but they also didn't make any huge mistakes. Jordan Mason fumbled, but it was kind of on his way down, and he fell on it, and so no harm there. So that's why I was asking about Cowing, because he also, of course, fumbled that punt return. But yeah, I think you knock it up to a B-. I'm with you, Dibs, because for the most part, those guys didn't make any major mistakes, even though they didn't perform in a sparkly way either.
Agreed. Yeah. And, I thought that Kittle was terrific. And, Deebo, I don't know if it was quite garbage time because they were only down by 2 scores, but he did pad his numbers a little bit late with some of that. But Jawan Jennings, again, with a couple of big catches, including the 4th down. Conley with a grab. Eric Saubert with a couple of...
San Francisco, an Odyssey Sports station, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. For a low-rate auto loan, apply online or just ask for First NorCal financing at the dealer. Grandi, back to you.
Up next, the offensive line. This is where it gets a little uglier, I should say. It hasn't been great so far. Offensive line, I gave them a D+. My thinking was it would be worse, but half of their job was the run game, and the run game worked very well. But the pass blocking, that was pretty bad all game long. So a D+ for the offensive line for me.
How many penalties? Do we have that in front of us?
Ooh, I don't have it off the top of my head.
I have the box score right here. The total penalties for the team, 4 for 30.
Okay.
And I know Trent had one, and I believe the majority of those were offensive line. There was an illegal formation penalty. There was a false start on Trent Williams. Yep. So only 4 penalties, though, accepted against the Niners.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with your D+. I think that it's somewhere in that range. The bottom line is they were outperformed by their counterparts for sure. And yeah, Brock Purdy did not have for the most part the time that he needed. And when you add in a few penalties, 6 sacks, whether some are on Brock or not, okay, but 6 sacks, offensive line is going to get a bad grade.
It's always tough to parse it out, and I would go C-.
Yeah, because of Jordan Mason.
No, because of it's tough with Trent Williams because you look at his run blocking, it was terrific. Pass blocking was problematic. Left side of the line probably gets a B-. Right side of the line and the center D- to an F. So when you look at the whole group, you had a couple of guys like Trent Williams was not terrible. He's not as good as he usually was.
Yep.
The right side of the O-line, Pooney, and the center, they had a lot of issues in the game. So the 5-man unit, and you have to look at it as a unit.
For sure.
C-. I don't argue with a D+. They were not great.
Sorry about that. Up next,
Grandi.
Hi, Grandi.
Front 7. This is maybe the most difficult one for me because you're kind of morphing a couple of position groups together. The defensive line, your down linemen, and your linebackers. Obviously, the star of the game for the Niners was Fred Warner, and he's the reason why this grade is somewhat decent. For the front 7 as a whole, I gave them a B+, our best grade of the day so far, but that is largely because Fred Warner was an A++++, and everyone else was not great.
Fred was a stud. Nick was certainly good enough, but that's 2 players, and you said there are 7 of them because they're called what? A front 7.
Correct.
And so that means that outside of those 2, I would argue that you got very little from that position group. Those 2 are there, and Fred saved the game from getting out of hand, so I'll grant you that, but B+ feels a little too easy for my liking. I could have wrapped my head around a B, felt more like a B- to me, because you do have guys like Javon Hargrave and Leonard Floyd who just were unable to really make a mark in this football game. You had a whole game to make a mark. You're going up against Sam Darnold. This is a doable thing, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I would give him a C+, and I think you nailed it with Fred and also Nick Bosa. I would have him in the A category, but other than that, you allowed Ty Chandler, not Tyson Chandler, the former center from Los Angeles, Ty Chandler, 82 yards on 10 carries. So, I mean, you got gashed in the run game. Sam Darnold, you only got to him a few times. And outside of Nick Bosa, Floyd was a no-show. Javon Hargrave continues to struggle. I didn't think that the front 7 was as effective. And I put part of it on the coordinator, Nick Sorensen, because you didn't heat up Darnold at all. You blitzed 4 times. You thought that you could get it done with your base, with your 4-man rush, and you didn't. So I give him a C+, the front 7.
Yeah, that's fair. I get your guys' points. Up next is the secondary. This one was strange because the last drive, I think, knocked the secondary down a couple of pegs. They had a bunch of 3rd and long conversions the Vikings did there, and that was without Justin Jefferson on the field. That was disappointing. I ultimately settled on a C- for the secondary because I thought largely, for the most part, they did a pretty decent job. You have the 97-yard touchdown, obviously, one mistake in the first half that was terrible, and that can never happen. And then you had the final drive that I'm talking about otherwise, but Darnold throws for 268. 97 was on one bad play. Jefferson, 133 yards, one play for 97 yards. Other than that one mistake, this was largely a pretty good day for the secondary. I know you can't just forget about one play. I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people do, so I'm settling on a C- for the secondary.
I guess I can work with that. The only rebuttal I would have that would make me feel like it might be a little bit more in the D+ range, I guess Here's the thing that's in the favor of the secondary. You said some of it, plus I also think that the 97-yard play to Justin Jefferson is a little bit more on the defensive coaching staff than it is on the players. With that said, what was your assignment? And I would argue that for half the game, the receiving core quarterback combo that you got as a secondary was Sam Darnold, Jalen Naylor, and Trent Sherfield, and a little bit of Brandon Powell.
Yep.
That's the group that you had to guard.
Forgot about Johnny Munt.
Who?
Go Ducks.
No Jefferson for half the game. No Jordan Addison at all. No TJ Hawkinson. And last year's backup quarterback throwing the ball, I hold you to a higher standard than that. I'm going to knock him down below what you said.
Below a C-.
Yes.
I was thinking C-, but you're kind of swaying me because I was thinking about the last scoring drive, and I'm just looking at the names, and it was Powell and Munt and Naylor and Munt and Powell. And these are third down conversions.
Munt?
Dude, Munt. You have no answer for Munt. And when you watch, especially the 3rd and 8 pass to Naylor that went for 26 yards, there was confusion. And the 97-yard pass play for the touchdown, there was confusion.
Sure.
I thought the secondary looked a little bit slow, a step slow. There was definitely confusion on a lot of it, including that drive. So I was going C-, Grandi, but I think it might be a D+.
Damn, you agreed with Willard, huh?
Well, he kind of swayed me because as I'm looking at it.
Thank you.
Well, man. And they didn't have Hawkinson. You didn't have Addison or Madison.
I'm good in debate class now. And I can put out a point.
Well,
you don't have to agree with it, but I can put out a point now.
And when I mentioned Munt, and you Munt? When you got Johnny Munt and you don't have an answer for Johnny Munt, then it goes from a C- to a D+.
Johnny Munt.
Fair enough. All right. Up next is special teams. I know this is where Dibs disagrees with me as well.
Boy.
Obviously, there was the blocked punt.
Yep.
Mitch Wishnowsky just becoming an observer, which was odd. There was the muffed punt by Jacob Cowling. They fell on it. Didn't ultimately hurt them that bad, although the next play, I think, Purdy threw an interception and it turned into a touchdown. There was Deebo Samuel bringing the ball out of the end zone and only getting out to like the 15 and then a penalty on top of it.
Yep.
Not great. All of that considered, it didn't really hurt you a ton. That's why I know Dibs was going for an F. I gave the special teams unit a D+.
It's an F. I think it's an F because the way that the punt was blocked was an absolute give-away. It was a give-up. It was a sieve. You let a guy straight through the B gap, and he had a straight line, and that thing was blocked easily. It wasn't one of these athletic plays where the guy goes around the corner and gets a piece of it. That thing was smothered. And yeah, Mitch Wishnowsky did the staring contest. The muff punt.
That was so bad.
Isaac Yiadom recovered it. He recovered 2 fumbles on the day, by the way. Yiadom. The kick return was a debacle from Deebo, taking it from 3 yards deep. He had momentum going forward. Those 3 plays, while not directly leading to points, all of them, those were disastrous plays. They get an F.
Am I remembering this correctly? The punt block led to the first quarter field goal?
Field goal.
The field goal.
The defense did not allow them anything.
But it led to points.
Yep.
Correct.
It led to points. All right. So, and you said D+?
D+.
I'm going to split the difference with the two of you. I'm going to go D. And the only reason that I'm going to say that, I'm going to agree that D+ is too soft because of all the things you just said, Dibs. The reason I'm not going to give an F is, and again, as a teacher, an F means you didn't do squat. You did nothing. And Jake Moody is perfect on the year. And so I got to give them points for something because they showed up, they did their assignment, they didn't do it well, but therefore you get a D. That's what I would give them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, Jake Moody, perfect field goals and extra points. Not many, only 3 kicks in total, but, he was good overall. Okay, last one is the coaching. I gave coaching overall a C+ for this one. I'm probably a little more encouraged just because I saw Kyle Shanahan be aggressive, and I want him to be aggressive, and it's one of my sticking points with Shanahan for years now. The fact that he went for it twice on 4th downs on one drive, I was trying to scour game logs and try to find another time where he's gone for it on 4th down multiple times in a single drive. I couldn't get through every single game, but I hadn't found one. I was so ecstatic he did that. Of course, it failed. The 4th and goal from the 2 at the end of that long drive. He went for it again later on. Didn't get that one either. But I was encouraged by that overall. There were some other mistakes. Defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen and the Justin Jefferson touchdown debacle. All of that, I get it. Overall, I might be a little bit lighter on this because I was just so eager to see Shanahan be aggressive finally, even though it didn't pay off. So C+ for me for coaching.
I C-, and that's generous. The more I've looked at the film and looked at what went wrong in this game and the fact that they only blitzed 4 times and Kyle Shanahan electing to go for it on 4th and 2 instead of taking the 3, the 97-yard debacle on the big touchdown to Justin Jefferson where inexplicably you don't have your best corner guarding their best receiver. You got 2 safeties deep, neither of whom is really a good deep cover guy. Those coaching mistakes for me are inexcusable.
You said C-?
Yeah.
And Grandi, you said C+?
Correct.
It's an A. Kyle Shanahan is the greatest coach who has ever lived. Now, I think I'm going to lean toward you, Dibs, on this one. I don't think it's a D, but I think a C- sounds about right to me. And because I do look at it collectively. The position that the defensive coordinator put their players in a couple of times did not work. I did not like. And then I'll go with a lot of the people who have called us in the 48 hours since and just talk about what feels like an inability to adjust. You were triggered by Brock Purdy going over to Brian Flores and saying, I love your scheme. This is great. This is a pretty cool scheme that you got there. You didn't like that? I'll tell you what I didn't like about it. You knew it was coming, and you seemingly couldn't do anything about it. Like, you're the scheme master. You're supposed to be able to out-scheme Brian Flores. And I know that that's complicated because there's execution involved in that. You can, have the right scheme, and if your players don't execute, then this is what you get. But it felt like I would love to be able to, if you're supposed to be able to scheme people open, and the Niners are getting open worse than anyone in the entire league, and Brock doesn't have time, and he's holding the ball a little bit too long, these are the things that are all sort of involved in the timing and the scheme of it, and Kyle's got to wear that. It feels like there were things out there that they just couldn't adjust to on the fly. And it bit him. It bit him in the biggest moments. So, yeah, I'll lean toward where you said C-.